Welcome to Bears News Fan Report, your ultimate destination for the latest updates, breaking news, and exclusive insights on our beloved Chicago Bears. I've been sitting on something that could absolutely shake up everything we think we know about this team's direction, and I need you to stay with me through this entire video, because what I'm about to share might just be the most ambitious move this franchise could make. You know, there's a different energy around Hallis Hall these days. Something has shifted. We're not that same organization that's been spinning our wheels for the past decade. We've got a coaching staff that commands respect across the league, we've got young talent that's starting to click, and most importantly, we've got a front office that's finally showing some real aggression. And when I say aggression, I'm talking about the kind of bold moves that separate contenders from pretenders. So here's where things get absolutely fascinating. I've been doing some digging, connecting some dots, and there's a situation developing that could have massive implications for how we build this defense moving forward. We're talking about a potential move that would send shockwaves through the entire NFC North, a move that would instantly elevate our defense from good to absolutely elite. And it all centers around one player who's been trapped in football purgatory for far too long. Let me set the stage for you. Picture a defensive end who's been putting up Hall of Fame numbers year after year, consistently dominating offensive lines, terrorizing quarterbacks, doing everything humanly possible to will his team to victories. Now, picture that same player watching the playoffs from home, season after season, despite being arguably the most dominant defensive player in football. That's the reality for one particular superstar right now, and it's a situation that Ryan Poles has already shown interest in exploiting. Here's something that didn't get nearly enough attention when it happened. Back before the 2025 trade deadline, our general manager made an aggressive push to acquire a certain elite pass rusher from Cleveland. According to NFL insider Adam Schefter himself, Poles put together what was described as an aggressive offer to pry this player away from the Browns. Cleveland shut it down immediately, but here's the thing. Just because they said no, then doesn't mean the door is closed forever. And that's where this story gets really interesting. The Bears are ascending. We're building something real here, with a young core, a brilliant coaching staff, and a front office that's not afraid to make big moves. Meanwhile, Cleveland is stuck in that same cycle they've been in for years. Talented roster, underwhelming results, organizational dysfunction. At some point, even the most loyal players start wondering if there's a better path forward. Now, I want you to think about our current pass rush situation for a moment. Montez Sweat has been solid since we traded for him back in 2023, absolutely. He's been a good player for us. But let's be honest about where we are. Dayo Odeyingbo hasn't panned out the way we hoped. Austin Booker is still raw, still developing, still years away from being the consistent force we need on the edge. We've got pieces, but we don't have that game-wrecking presence that changes entire game plans. And here's what keeps me up at night as a Bears fan. We've got a championship-caliber secondary. We've got young talent all over this roster. We've got a coaching staff that can scheme with the best of them. But in today's NFL, you need to be able to get to the quarterback. You need that guy who offensive coordinators have nightmares about, who forces teams to dedicate extra blockers, who can single-handedly wreck an opponent's offensive rhythm. We don't have that guy right now. But we could. Let me paint you a picture of what this player brings to the table. We're talking about someone who's piled up over 117 sacks in his career, 7 consecutive seasons with double-digit quarterback takedowns. And this isn't a player who's declining, who's past his prime, who's living off reputation. Heading into Week 12 of this season, he was leading the entire league with 15 sacks in just 10 games. 15 sacks. In 10 games. That's absolutely elite production. The player I'm building up to is Myles Garrett, and before you tell me it's impossible, before you tell me Cleveland would never trade him, hear me out. Because there's a legitimate path to making this happen, and it starts with understanding the situation from all angles. First, let's talk about Garrett's perspective. He's about to turn 30 when the 2026 season kicks off, which means he's still firmly in his prime, but also acutely aware that his championship window is closing. He's been with Cleveland his entire career, and what does he have to show for it? 0 playoff wins, 0 conference championship appearances. Not even close. He's one of the all-time greats at his position, and he's never played in a game that truly mattered in January. How much longer does a player of his caliber accept that reality? Now think about what Chicago could offer him. A young, ascending team with legitimate playoff aspirations, a defensive scheme that would maximize his talents, a coaching staff in Ben Johnson and his coordinators who know how to put players in position to succeed, a city that's starving for a championship and would embrace him as a hero. And most importantly, a real chance to compete for a Super Bowl before his career is over. That's a compelling pitch. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the cost. And I'm not just talking about draft capital, though that would be substantial. I'm talking about the financial commitment. Garrett signed a 4-year, $160 million extension back in March of 2025 that ties him to Cleveland through 2030. He's making $40 million per year with over $120 million in total guarantees. That's one of the most expensive contracts in football. Here's where it gets complicated for Cleveland. His contract is loaded with prorated bonus money, which means trading him would leave the Browns with massive dead cap hits. And on top of that, Garrett has a no-trade clause in his contract, which means he'd have to approve any deal. So this isn't just about Chicago and Cleveland agreeing on compensation. This is about Garrett wanting out, Cleveland being willing to move on, and all three parties finding common ground. So what would it take? According to analysts who've studied this situation, we're talking about a package headlined by 2 first-round picks with additional Day 2 and Day 3 capital included to sweeten the deal. One proposal I've seen suggests the Bears sending their 2026 first-round pick, their 2026 second-round pick, their 2027 first-round pick, and a 2027 fourth-round pick to Cleveland in exchange for Garrett. That's a massive haul. That's mortgaging a significant portion of our future draft capital. But here's the question we need to ask ourselves. Are we in a position where we can afford to be patient, or are we in a position where we need to strike while the iron is hot? Because if you believe this team is ready to compete for championships right now, if you believe we're 1 or 2 pieces away from being legitimate Super Bowl contenders, then a move like this starts to make a lot more sense. Think about what our defense would look like with Myles Garrett coming off the edge. We've already got a strong secondary that can cover. We've got linebackers who can play. But adding Garrett would transform everything. Offensive coordinators would have to game plan specifically around him, which means everyone else on our defense would benefit from the attention he commands. Montez Sweat would see better matchups. Our secondary would have more time to cover. Our entire defensive identity would change overnight. And let's talk about the timing of all this. Ryan Poles already showed his hand by making that aggressive offer before the trade deadline. That tells me he's serious about this. That tells me he sees the same opportunity I'm seeing. Cleveland said no at the time, but circumstances change. If the Browns continue to struggle, if Garrett starts making noise about wanting to compete for championships, if the right offer comes along, sometimes teams that say no end up saying yes. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is a done deal or even likely to happen. The financial complexities are real. The draft capital required is substantial. Garrett would have to want to come here, and Cleveland would have to be willing to part with their best player. Those are significant hurdles, but the fact that Poles already tried to make this happen tells me it's at least on the table. It tells me this front office is thinking big, thinking bold, thinking about moves that could accelerate our timeline. And here's what excites me most about even discussing this possibility. It shows how far we've come as an organization. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we weren't even in the conversation for players like Myles Garrett. Elite players in their prime didn't look at Chicago as a destination. But things have changed. We've got a coaching staff that players want to play for. We've got a culture that's being rebuilt the right way. We've got a roster that's young and talented and ascending. We're becoming a destination again, and that matters. So let's play this out. Let's say Poles pulls the trigger on a deal like this. Let's say we send multiple first-round picks and additional capital to Cleveland, and we bring Myles Garrett to Chicago. What does that mean for our Super Bowl window? Well, it means we're going all in right now. It means we believe this roster is ready to compete at the highest level. It means we're not waiting for some distant future. We're trying to win championships in the next 2 to 3 years. Is that the right move? That's the million-dollar question. On one hand, you're giving up significant draft capital that could be used to continue building through the draft, which has been Poles' strength. On the other hand, you're getting a generational talent at a premium position, a player who could be the difference between winning and losing playoff games. There's risk either way, but at some point you have to be willing to take risks if you want to win championships. I want to hear from you, Bears Nation. Do you think we should go all in on Myles Garrett? Would you be willing to part with multiple first-round picks to bring an elite pass rusher to Chicago? Or do you think we should continue building through the draft and let this young core develop naturally? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is the kind of decision that defines franchises, and I want to know where you stand. And remember, this is just the beginning of what could be a wild off-season. We're going to be covering every rumor, every potential move, every development as it happens. If you're not already subscribed to Bears News Fan Report, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Share this video with your fellow Bears fans who need to hear about this possibility. We're building something special here, and I want you all to be part of the conversation. I'll be back soon with more exclusive insights, more breaking news, and more in-depth analysis of everything Chicago Bears. Until then, keep the faith, keep believing in this team, and let's see if Ryan Poles has one more blockbuster move up his sleeve. Bear down, always.